Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Alberta Party wants to see the Kinder Morgan pipeline built. Unlike others, we will never cheer against Alberta and hope for the pipeline to fail because we think somehow that's going to help our political fortunes. Now, today, the Federal Minister of Finance in Ottawa said Ottawa would indemnify Kinder Morgan and that would transfer to new owners if the pipeline was sold. Now, interestingly, he said there are plenty of investors who'd be interested in taking on that project. To the Premier, you have said before that you would consider buying the entire project. Is Alberta one of the investors considering taking on a stake in the Kinder Morgan pipeline?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. No, I appreciate the members' questions, but as I've said, we are working very closely with the federal government. Our officials are working very closely with them. We're speaking again with lead negotiators on a pretty much daily basis, and negotiations are underway. So there's a number of different elements to those negotiations, and when we get to the point where we are in the best position on behalf of Alberta taxpayers as well as Alberta citizens to release more information, we will do that, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, very interesting. You've said you won't negotiate in public, but your headlines say otherwise. When news about the troubles with Kinder Morgan first broke, the government overreacted, saying immediately that they would buy the whole thing. And the Premier even said the pipeline project was, quote, too big to fail, which further jeopardized Alberta's negotiating position. Seems every time the government speaks, the price goes up. To the Premier, will you commit here and now to exercise some discipline and not speak publicly about the Kinder Morgan pipeline negotiations until there is a deal to announce?
Oh my God.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a darn good thing I didn't answer his first question. So, yes, we will certainly be very strategic in the way we engage in the communications on this, because we understand that the stakes are high and that we need to be very strategic on this matter, Mr. Speaker. But what we do know is at the end of the day, there are a number of different paths to ensure success for Albertans, and we are pursuing all of them rigorously on behalf of the people of Alberta.
Second supplemental.
So, Mr. Speaker, here's my concern. It isn't just government officials speaking openly about this project. We have backroom operators leaking like a sieve as well. According to the CBC, a senior official in this government said, quote, Kinder Morgan is not making this easy. Now, as tempting as it may be for the government to grab for headlines, these sorts of leaks damage our relationship with Kinder Morgan, they damage Alberta's reputation, and they hurt our chances of getting a pipeline built. Again to the Premier, will you ensure that none of your officials or anyone with knowledge of the Kinder Morgan negotiations speaks to the media on or off the record until a deal is done?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, what I will ensure is that we are as strategic as we can possibly be to ensure that we get the best outcome for Albertans, one that represents the overall public interest that is reflected in getting this pipeline built, as well as one that goes as close as possible to achieving the best commercial interest in terms of the way in which the pipeline is built, Mr. Speaker. That's a complex process. We are working very carefully to navigate it, Mr. Speaker, and we will do so in the best interest of all Albertans.